welcome. Thank you for being here. It's going to be a great evening. We appreciate it. My name is Larry Rodriguez. I'm the president of the Dallas Producers Association. We're working with the Dallas Film Commission here. We're going to bring Tony Armour up for you. Thank you all for being here. If you have any questions about the DPA, please come find me. We're at DallasProducers.org. But without any further ado, let me introduce you to Tony Armour. Welcome, Tony.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming out. I want to say a big thank you to the Texas Theater here, of course, and hopefully awesome venue, so we're super excited to just be able to do this and to start this whole series of free workshops now that we're going to be putting on in the Dallas area. I was really blown away to have as many RSVPs as we had, and people excited to come out, but I guess it's free, so you know I shouldn't be too surprised. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good? Okay. That was a big thumbs up in the audience there. What you guys don't know is that this actually isn't going to be a workshop we're doing. I'm starting a multi-level marketing. It's an offshoot of Amway. It was either that or I'm going to start my stand-up career tonight. See what I can do. So my name is Tony Armour, and I am your new Dallas Film Commissioner. I just started at Thank You. Please hold your applause until the end. I just started in January. I came from St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, where I've been the film commissioner for almost the last 9 years. You might wonder, why is a film commissioner doing truth on how to get your screenplay or idea made? When I meet people in general, out and about, and I tell them my job, glazed look comes over their eyes because it sounds really cool, but no one has any idea like what a film commissioner actually is or what the job is. So I won't go into a whole long explanation of what that is, other than, you know, our job is to help you and help anyone that comes to the area make their projects here, whether it's finding crew or locations or, you know, getting out in the community and doing these sort of educational community events. I don't know if a lot of other film commissions do that, but that's something that I like to do. And then getting out in the world and marketing Dallas to bring production here, whether it's, you know, commercials, TV shows, feature films, whatever it might be. So that's everything kind of in a quick nutshell. But my background, unlike a lot of other film commissioners who sometimes are just government employees that happen to kind of fall into their position, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying anything bad about that at all, because there are a lot of amazing film commissioners around the country. But my background is as a award-winning filmmaker and a producer and a writer. Started my own production company back in 2002. I founded the Sunscreen Film Festival in St. Pete, Florida. We're going into our 18th year this year with that festival. There's an applause somewhere. And have worked on the packaging of films and getting them sold and distributed and raising financing for films. Just kind of like a wide variety of doing a little bit of everything, you know, within the independent film world. I've had a couple of films that I produced that Lionsgate theatrically released. I have another film coming up that Lionsgate's putting out, and another project that I helped put together that I think is going to end up on Hallmark Channel. It should be coming out sometime soon as well. So I like to really get involved and hands-on on doing stuff, not just from the sort of the producing side, but like I said, I've directed and wrote projects that have won awards at film festivals all over the world as well. So that's just a little bit of, not to kind of brag, but to say, I know a little bit of what I'm talking about when I'm going to kind of go through this for you, and hopefully this information will be something that you all find useful. So before I get started, a question, you know, I want to ask a couple questions to the audience so I kind of know who I'm talking to and what you guys, you know, what your knowledge level is as I get into it, and how much into the weeds I'm going to get into some of this stuff. So how many people in the audience have made a feature film before? Okay, so just a few people. And of those people that have made a feature film, how many of them have got them distributed? And it could just be online distribution. Okay, so handful of people that have gotten distribution, online distribution. How many of the rest of you in the audience want to make a feature film and get it distributed? Okay. Hence why everybody's here for the workshop today. All right, of the people that are here, how many of you really understand truly how sales distribution of a film works? A few people. Okay, good. And I imagine a lot of people, you know, again, another reason that you're here for this title of this particular workshop is how many of you, it seems like a complete mystery on how you actually get somebody to give you money and turn something into a project and do something with it? That's pretty much everyone. So, okay, good. All right, so I'm just gonna dive in, go through all of this. Some of it may be obvious to some of you, some of it may be brand new to some of you, and we can answer and ask questions at the very end, because I imagine there'll be a lot of questions. What we'll also do is everybody that RSVP'd or was on the wait list, we will email this PDF deck so that you have it. I know people always want to take pictures, so we'll email that to you, and we are recording this so that we'll put it on the Film Commission's YouTube channel at some point after we go through and do the edit as well. And we'll actually turn this into one of our podcasts. We're starting a whole podcast series, and we're going to drop about 10 episodes of those all at once, probably sometime in May or something like that. So, so I guess we'll just, Andrew here. Oh, and by the way, Andrew with the Film Commission is amazing and so great, to work with, and really helps keep everything running while I'm running all over trying to get things going. So, all right. So, one of the big questions. I can actually read this. So there are a couple of ways to get your film made, right? A lot of people, especially in the independent film space, you have to go out and raise the money and find the money yourself. And how do you find the money? Crowdfunding, crowdfunding's super popular for a lot of sources. It can be tough sometimes because you really got to be good at social media to really push that out there, and it's like a full-time job just trying to crowdfund. You can spend your own money. That's really the easiest way to do it, but not a lot of us have $1 million in our pocket if you want to make that $1 million feature film. Raising money, friends and family, that's a very common way. Who's got a rich dentist, uncle or something like that that's willing to kick in the money. Finding investors, that's the most common way. Everyone's like, how do I find investors? How do I find complete strangers that will trust me with all of their money so that I can make something for me and not for them? So, and think about it that way too. When you think about when you're going out and you're asking somebody for money to invest in your project, you're saying, what can you do for me even though you don't know me and I don't know you? And so that sometimes is why there's like a big disconnect and why it's really hard to build those relationships and get people to give you money, because if someone has enough money to invest in films, you're not the only one asking them for the money to invest in those projects. Grants, I don't think people look at grants enough, especially for any sort of social topics or social issues. You can go to nofilmschool.com and Google nofilmschool.com/grants. I thought that was my watch ringing for a minute. I said, right here. And you'll get a list of like 100 different grants, all kinds of grants for documentaries, for narrative stuff, for short films, whatever it might be. Film incentives are obviously a big part of when films get made and why they get made. I think probably everyone that lives here in Texas and works in the industry is familiar with Texas's lack of incentive over the years, or underfunded, but everyone feels pretty good about this year from everything that I'm hearing. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. I think everyone should pray to the God of Taylor Sheridan and thank him for what he's done, because without him, the state legislature and politicians wouldn't be as amped on funding incentives as they are. So he's been great for the community. Distribution pre-sales, that's a whole mysterious thing that people don't understand. I'll talk a little bit more about as we get going. Product placement, you can actually sell product placement in your film. People think of big projects like Mercedes coming in, but on a small community level, why can't you get small community businesses that you want to feature their business or their product in your film as well? So product placement is a way to, even if it's anything that takes something off of your bottom line. So you need food, you need catering for your cast and crew. If you get a local restaurant that wants to be a part of the film, you feature their restaurant, but they give you the food for free, well, you just eliminate that line item out of your budget. So think of things in a creative way a lot of times when you're thinking about putting projects together. And then I'm sure there are lots of other creative financing methods. People have been talking about NFTs and crypto, and I don't trust any of that. So I know people have been talking about the whole crypto financing thing, and I remember a few years ago when NFTs were first starting to come out, there was some agent in Hollywood, and there was an article in the Hollywood Reporter or something, and he said, no way NFTs are a fad. And I immediately thought, that means they're a fad. If some Hollywood agent says there's no way something's a fad, I guarantee it's a fad. So anyways, we'll move on to the next slide here. And then the second way, and probably the most popular way that people think your project gets made, is you write the most glorious script that has ever been written in the history of mankind, and it just finds its way into the hands of someone who loves it so much that they decide to make your passion project. And then that's how your movie gets made. And that's a very difficult, difficult way to get projects done. The big question always is like, how do you get someone with the power to actually make your film to do it? It's just difficult to find those people, especially if you think, well, I live in Dallas, I don't live in Hollywood. Where are the people who have the ability to do these things, and how do I get to them? I'm confusing myself with different sides of the screen here. So, for the most part, where do, when you see anything on Netflix or a streaming service or in the theaters, where do those projects come from? Obviously, established writers who are already doing things in the industry, right? I'm not telling you anything that you don't know when you see the same names of people that are established in the industry writing the same projects over and over again. Established production companies that are pitching these projects to studios or independent producers or putting things together. Web series, podcasts, social media. I think there was a Twitter feed several years ago. They turned into a CBS TV series called Shit My Dad Says. And so they made a TV series with William Shatner on it based off of just this Twitter thread that this guy did because his dad said funny stuff, essentially. So it didn't last very long, but it got made in the first place. Books, graphic novels, obviously really huge for anything that you have that's sort of a pre-existing IP. That's everybody's favorite word in the industry, IP, intellectual property, that everyone just wants to use those initials. Reboots, screenplay contests, and websites, and then of course the spec scripts, which is I think what most people probably have. It's just you wrote this original idea, this original script that's a spec script, and you want to tell your story and somehow get that made. The problem is, you're a writer. You don't want to be a producer. You just want someone to come and give you the money to make your project happen, right? You don't want to put business plans together. You don't want to learn about sales and distribution. You just want to focus on your art and nothing else and doing that. Someone just make my movie for me. And so that's why we call this the truth about getting your project made, is that for someone who's not established in the industry, that's basically impossible. And I don't want to be the Debbie Downer and be negative, and I'm not going to be negative throughout this. I want to try and hopefully give you some valuable insight on how you can get things done. But it's really hard to just be like, here's my thing, someone make this for me. Because very much, let's jump to the next slide, very much they don't know you. Nobody in the industry knows who you are. And so why would they give you the money for a project when they can give it to somebody that they do know, that has a track record, that has done things already? People work with people that they know and trust. If any of you have worked on projects together, commercial projects or short films or whatever it might be, who do you call when you want to do your next project? You call people you've already worked with, that you can trust, that you've got a good relationship with. You call friends of yours, and you build those relationships, and that's how you get stuff done. And this is something that an actual literary manager in LA that has worked on big projects like The Walking Dead and stuff, basically, it said to me when we were talking on this subject, and said, if you're serious, you'd move to LA and eat ramen noodles and share an apartment with 6 people like I did. And that's how I know you're serious to be in this industry. And I think that mentality has changed a little bit now, post-COVID. So this was a pre-COVID conversation that I had with him. But it was very much, here, we're in LA, this is where the industry happens. If you are truly serious about this, that's what you're going to do. You're going to move out here, and you're going to suffer and struggle until you make it. And I think, like I said, I think that has changed a little bit now, especially because people are abandoning Los Angeles and moving to Texas from California and other areas. And so it's really hard. Why should they look at your script? And even beyond just the script, what if you just have an idea? Someone, all the time says, I got this great idea for a film. Like, awesome. What is it? They tell you, yeah, that is a great idea. Do you have a script? No. All right, well, do you want to write a script? Well, I'm not a writer. I just have an idea. Well, have you thought about learning how to write a script or talking with a writer to help you write your script? Because lots of people have ideas. My dad has ideas. My brother has ideas. There's lots of people with ideas, but what is an idea? You can't copyright just an idea. You can copyright a script. You can copyright a treatment. You can copyright a graphic novel or a book. And so is something copyrightable that you can actually turn into something, some sort of intellectual property, film, television, whatever. If it's just an idea, there's not much you can do about it. You can Google and find all kinds of articles online about how so-and-so sued this production company that made this movie because they stole their idea. And they lose every single time they do that. Because, you know, even when you have a script, and sometimes people go in and they pitch to a studio, and then they make something that's similar but different, people try and sue on that. But if they change it just enough, you're not gonna win. It's just one of those things where, you know, you need more than an idea, basically. So, and this is just a little bit of example on, you know, think about this on why do like Hollywood talent agencies, they don't take outside submissions at all or phone calls. So if, you know, myself as a film commissioner in Florida down here in Dallas, if I'm getting one or two or a couple of calls a day or a few calls a week about can you find money for my movie, because people don't understand what a film commission does, how many do you think CAA or WME are getting? So even if it's just 100 calls a day, they're getting close to 37,000 phone calls or emails a year. They got one poor person who's just working the phones, you know, or every day, or, you know, that's why they have security guards at the front door, because everybody just wants to pitch their idea, but they don't take outside submissions. They only work through the channels that they know, essentially. Next slide. So how do you get their attention? So everybody, I think, knows that quote, you know, God helps those that help themselves. And I think everybody in Hollywood kind of feels the same way. Like, what are you doing to help yourself, to further yourself in the industry as a writer, as a producer, whatever it might be. So if you're just starting out as a writer, if you're just starting to learn, are you joining screenwriting groups? Are you taking master classes online? You don't have to necessarily go to film school or go back to film school or go back to college, because, you know, many of us have jobs and kids and families and are just trying to make our way, but this is something that we're trying to do. But there are other ways of getting yourself out there and learning, again, especially with all of the online courses that you can take, and, you know, books like, you know, Save the Cat and The Writer's Journey and Robert McKee's story. You can, you know, buy an actual physical book. It's a real thing. They still sell books. You can still get them and read them and look at them, or you can get, you know, audio versions or whatever it might be. What are you doing on an everyday basis to improve your craft or get better? If you're a writer, are you writing something every day? Are you just writing 3 pages a day of something? Even if it's not a screenplay that you're working on right now, you know, you're just writing ideas down or whatever it might be. Are you learning how to, you know, write a better treatment, or to map out, you know, a 3-act story structure and just put ideas into that 3-act story structure? What are you working on a daily basis? Think of it like, you know, like going to the gym or doing anything else. Anything like that is a muscle that you are improving by working on it every day, essentially. So how do you get their attention? So professional coverage on screenplays is actually something that is really great. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but it's something I like to do on any screenplay that I write, even if it's just a first draft. I'll send it off to Screencraft or Coverfly and get professional coverage that tells me, you know, an unvarnished outside opinion that's not friends or not family on what they think about my script. And they really break it down and give you lots of notes. And, you know, you'll pay $100 or whatever it might be, but it's really valuable to get that kind of feedback and that kind of information. And it really helps inform you on writing those next drafts. So I had a screenplay that I wrote several years ago that I sent off for coverage, and it had some really good notes and really good feedback on it. And so I made some changes based on the notes and the feedback, and then I submitted it to Screencraft's Action Screenplay Competition. And Screencraft's generally considered one of the top 3 screenplay contests in the world. And my screenplay ended up finishing in the top 5% as a finalist in that competition. Not gonna say it's solely based on the feedback that they gave me initially when I was just getting coverage on it, but anything like that is gonna give you that little bit of advice or help you, you know, continue to craft it. Screencraft, Blacklist, you know, Final Draft has an amazing contest. They're probably, you know, top 2 right there with the Academy, the Nichols Fellowship. You know, you can see them all listed here. Sundance Labs are something that are really great as well. Very difficult to get into, but, you know, they actually put you into a lab and mentor you. And I know there are other programs around the country that do things like this as well. And it'd be great if we could kind of get something going like that. Someone here in Dallas, we'll see what we can do to work on that. I know, you can go to the next slide. Andrew's like, my head moved too fast. I know if anybody listens to the podcast Script Notes, Craig Mazin is one of the hosts on Script Notes, hates screenplay contests. He thinks they're like terrible, worst thing in the world. But he's been in the industry for 30 years and has written huge projects. He's the guy who just did The Last of Us on HBO. And he's really great. It's a really fascinating podcast to listen to, actually learn a lot listening to script notes. But he hates screenplay contests, but I still think that they are valuable to a certain extent because they do help you get that little bit of notoriety, that little bit of, putting something extra into whatever you're putting out there. So for example, the screenplay that I wrote, after I put that together and I started working on packaging it, when we were calling up the agencies, looking at what actors we wanted to attach to the project, we said, well, this finished in the top 5% of Screencraft's Action Screenplay Competition. So, okay, I guess it can't be too awful if it actually did something in some of these contests. Now, be careful on the contests because some of them are just money grabs, and there are no guarantees anything's going to come out of it. But I think it's a good exercise to really kind of help improve your writing and everything. So I don't know if this is a good analogy or not. I kind of came up with this craft beer analogy. That think of your spec script like a craft beer, right? And do you want to sell your beer in the grocery store or do you want to sell it out of the trunk of your car? So, the websites, Blacklist, Inktip, that's like putting it in a grocery store. You have somebody who's sort of saying, this is something that's real, it's won some awards, it's done well, we like this, the coverage is great on this screenplay, we've given it a recommend. Or are you just going to cold call producers that you find on IMDb and say, hey, I got a screenplay, can you make this for me? And that's kind of like trying to sell your screenplay out of the trunk of your car. So I don't know if anybody likes this analogy, if this makes sense or not, but something random I came up with. People would rather buy the beer, even if it's a great craft beer, from the craft brewery that they go to or the grocery store than somebody selling beer out of the trunk of the car. Or bathtub vodka, or whatever it might be. Whatever your liquor of preference that you're making is. Okay, let's say that someone likes your script. A lot of times they like your script, they like your writing, but maybe they don't want to actually make your story. They like your writing style, they like your voice, they like what you're saying, and so the question always becomes then, well, what else you got? I don't know how many meetings I've been in with, yeah, that sounds good, what else you got? And so you always want to have something else in your back pocket, a second, a third, or a fourth, story, whatever that might be. What else do you have? You might have that one thing you've been working on for 10 years, and this is the project and the only thing you want to make with your life. It's the most important thing to you in the world, but if nobody wants to make it, maybe you should do something else as well. Maybe that has to be the third movie that you make instead of the first movie that you make because something else is easier for you to get done first. You don't necessarily have to give up on it, but what can you do to keep working towards getting that done if you have something else in your back pocket. Okay, so the example, writer for family film. That's a note to me to tell you a story. After I get a drink real quick. Okay, so 2017, I was at the Cannes Film Festival in France. I had a pavilion there representing St. Pete Clearwater and just really promoting Florida as a destination for people to come make their movies. And I have a friend of mine that I'd known at the time for maybe 10 years. He was a sales agent and a producer, and he had just sold a film to Lionsgate. And he called me up and he was like, hey, I just had a meeting with Lionsgate because I sold a film to them, and they asked me, what else you got? Do you have a family-friendly manatee, dolphin, some kind of marine mammal movie? And he was like, no, but I got a guy. Because I was based in Clearwater, Florida, where the Dolphin Tale films were shot, and obviously, beautiful area, wild dolphins, whatever there. And so anyways, Marty calls me up and he says, well, you got anything? You got a script? You got anything? I was like, no, come to the pavilion, let's talk. So he comes over, we spent about 45 minutes writing a treatment on my phone. We just come up with this crazy idea about a dolphin that gets sunburned and gets stranded, and a little kid finds him, and the kid likes to make videos on his YouTube channel, and so then he does this whole thing, and then it goes viral. We literally come up with this crazy treatment that we write on my phone over the course of about 45 minutes. He goes back to Lionsgate the next day, and he pitches the story to them. They're like, that's great, give us a script. But we don't have a script, right? So, Cannes takes place in May, and school's let out in Florida, May, beginning of June. So I get back to Florida, Marty gets back to LA, and we call up a woman that we know who's a part of a screenwriting group. She's part of a screenwriting group, has not written anything that has been made into a feature film whatsoever. She's also a grade school teacher. So I'm like, Carrie's a grade school teacher, she knows kids. this is going to be a family-friendly film. She's in the screenwriting group. I've read some of her stuff. It's not too bad. Hey, Terry, will you write a movie about a sunburned dolphin for us? We have a very detailed treatment that we put together. You're going to write every 10 pages. You're going to send us every 10 pages, and we're going to give you notes. We need it in 1 month. You're not working in school right now because you're off for the summer. We can't pay you up front, but if this gets made, you'll get paid for it. She's like, okay. She writes it. Marty then takes it, does a second run at it, for the second draft or whatever. He takes it to Lionsgate, and they're great. Here's how much money we'll give you for the domestic distribution of this film. So Marty takes that, and then because he's in the industry, he then gets a worldwide deal on the film. And so I'll explain a little bit about the distribution stuff and the reason that's important is because you need to know how a film makes money to know why somebody would give you money to make a film in the first place. So we're getting into some crazy businessy weeds kind of stuff in a little bit. It might bore some people or glaze your eyes over, so I'll try and move a little bit fast, but we'll ask questions at the end and get it figured out. So we get the script done. They like it. We get a worldwide deal. I have a couple of people that I know that I just call them up and say, hey, we have your money guaranteed for this film because we already have the distribution done worldwide for this. Will you give me X amount of dollars for the film? They say, sure, of course. That sounds great. See the paperwork. I see this is legit. It's Lionsgate. And from the time I had the meeting in France to cameras rolling was 7 months. And that never happens, ever, ever, ever. And as we were going through post-production on the film, and this was me as a film commissioner. My job as a film commissioner was to get this film made in St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida. But because my background as a producer, I was like, I'm not going to sit here and ask other people to try and make movies here. What can I do to actively get stuff made in our community, in our area? So as we were going through post-production on the film, then Lionsgate liked it so much they asked for a sequel. So you can find on Hulu and other areas Bernie the Dolphin 1 and Bernie the Dolphin 2. You can find them on Delta Airlines if you're on Delta and you happen to fly somewhere. You can watch these films. And it was all because he just called up and said, I need a family-friendly marine mammal dolphin movie, and I knew a writer who was a teacher who hadn't ever done anything, and it just kind of, everything worked out that way. And so then after that, then people started hiring Terry to write films and to do stuff. She started working on her own projects and kind of progressing in the career. But that was just an example of, are you putting in the work? She's part of the screenwriting group. Now, I just happened to know her from the screenwriting group that she was in, and she constantly was at the Sunscreen Film Festival in St. Pete. I would see her every year, got to know her, and so, made these two dolphin movies. They're not huge budgeted films, they're small films, but they were a lot of fun to make, and Lionsgate did theatrical releases on both of those films. So just one of those kind of crazy things that you just never know what direction it's going to take you. And part of the example on that too is that you might have something you want to make, but what does the industry want to see? What is it that people want, and can you make what people want as well? Because there's the old saying that you've all heard a million times, it's not called show art, it's called show business. And it's all about making money. No matter what they say within the industry, everybody's interested in making money. Now, but there are really two types of investors. Investors that will give you money because it's a business deal and they want their money back plus something, or people who are going to invest in something because it's a message that they want to help get out into the world. So that is important to know as well, because people will dedicate their time and energy and money into things if they think it's an important story and they want to support you in telling that story. So those are two very distinct and different ones, because basically they're giving you a gift to make a film and they're not expecting their money back. But from a business perspective, which is what I'm going to get into in depth a little bit here, it's about how do you make money and get your money back in your project, because that's the reason that investors generally put money in films. All right. Is anybody finding this useful so far? Yes. Okay. I know I'm doing a lot of talking, and sometimes I feel like I'm saying things that are obvious and that I would assume that everybody just kind of knew or thought, but maybe not, which is why 150 people RSVP'd for this. So, a really interesting trend within the industry is shooting proof of concept. A lot of times you'll have an idea that you want to tell that's a big idea, that's a feature film, that's something like that, but they don't, they really might like you and they want to help you do it. You haven't done anything before. What is this really going to look like when it's done? And so shooting a proof of concept, whether it's a 5, 10, or 15-minute short film version of what the feature film is going to be, is really helpful in a lot of scenarios, which is why they're always doing reboots. somehow, or web series that have built an audience online and end up with a couple of million views and followers watching whatever it is in a web series, you've built an audience already for your film. So if they know there's an audience for it, then they want to go ahead and make it. Because the first question that they'll ask when you pitch them our idea, or they read your screenplay, or they look at something, isn't, is this a great story? Does this have great characters? It is, how can I market this? Because how can I market it means how can I sell it, it means how can we make money off of it. So it all boils back to how can we actually make money on this project or this thing that you're trying to create. So you can, Google short films made in the features, but just some big examples. Saw, if anybody's familiar or heard of the Saw franchise. District 9, Whiplash, which was a short before it was a feature. A ton of projects are short films before they are feature films. And short films are business cards, really, for you as a filmmaker. Showing what you can do, showing that you know how to tell a story, showing that you're able to engage an audience. And they're great, for learning and practicing and actually honing your craft as well. And I heard that there's a great film festival that takes place in this theater that plays short films as well. That is the call for entry still open for Oak Cliff, or have they closed that yet? No one from Oak Cliff is in the room at the moment, but it's still open. I'm going to assume it's still open, so if you have something. Okay, so, kind of finding a way. So how do you find a way? Just like Jurassic Park, life finds a way. As a producer, as a screenwriter, or director, how do you find a way? How are you going to find a way? Like we talked about, the coverage, the contest, classes, books, listening to feedback, making changes, if necessary. Not saying that you have to, if somebody gives you particular feedback and you don't like it, you have to listen to all of their changes. But if you get the same feedback from multiple people, maybe that's something that you should, listen to or incorporate, basically. Really kind of weigh the feedback or the information that you're getting and say, and be able to self-analyze a little bit and be like, yeah, maybe this doesn't make any sense, what I've written here. If everybody's confused by what I've written, or if this storyline doesn't work, maybe there's something I can do to keep the intent that I want to tell here, but still change it a little bit. I win awards there. Like, it's so easy, right? Like, just win some awards, everybody. All of you in the room just need to write something and win some awards and you're fine. Piece of cake. Networking, and I think this is, to me, one of the biggest things, and it's why you have the Dallas Producers Association, and you've got these different groups around, is because if you don't know anybody in the industry, how are you going to kind of, filmmaking is a collaborative process. You can make movies by yourself. It's not impossible to do, but in general, you have to work with people to get something made. And so where are you going to meet those people? Groups like the DPA, film festivals. To me, film festivals are the #1 resource for meeting people, in this industry. And I've literally built my entire career off of going to film festivals, attending film festivals, meeting people. I obviously started a film festival, and so it's great because they all come to me once a year, and I get to meet them and become friends with them, and then grow in the industry from there. So really, just getting out there, and meeting as many people as possible. I know some people are shy and don't like people or like to talk to people, but if you're going to film festivals, those are all your people, right? You're all kind of we're the same. We all have the same goals, the same things that we want to achieve. And like your parents telling you, come on, get outside the box. Go talk to people. Go play outside. There's a great article in Movie Maker magazine. You can't really click on this. The double click's not working. But the link will be in the deck when we send that out for everybody to take a look at. Other side. All right. So if everybody thinks that making a feature film is this impossible task that you can't accomplish without this big number that you need. I need $1 million, I need $500,000, I need a big dollar number that you don't typically have in your bank account, right? Because we're just all kind of, working and doing our jobs. But there is this concept of just making a film whether you have money or not. And it's something that you've seen a number of filmmakers do over the years and be successful with. Not everybody's going to be Blair Witch Project or, I'm blanking on the Paranormal Activity, thank you, which at one point in time was the most profitable film series in the world because of the budgets that they made that at, and then how much money those films actually actually made. But those are outliers. Do not put in your pitch deck when you're pitching to people Paranormal Activity and the Blair Witch Project as comparables to what your project is, because those are things that happen, once every 15 or 20 years and don't happen on a regular basis. But there's no reason that you can't make your $5,000 feature film. My first film that I made in 2004 as a feature film, we spent $6,000 on. It was absolutely, thank you. It was absolutely terrible, and nobody should ever see it. But making that film did more for my career than not making it. So at the time, we had been making some short films, myself and some friends, and I had started a production company, and I was shooting commercials. And I just told this story earlier. Don and I were having coffee earlier. I said that I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just learning to get started. I called up Telemundo and said, "Hey, do you need somebody to shoot commercials for you?" And they just randomly said, "Yeah, you want to shoot a grocery store commercial?" I was like, "All right." So I'm shooting Spanish language grocery store commercials in Tampa. I don't speak Spanish at all. And I'm editing these things in Spanish, and I'm literally playing over the phone to the woman at Telemundo to see if it sounds right for the Spanish that I'm editing together in this thing. But it kind of just goes back to this find a way, right? Just get out there and hustle and put the work in. So we were doing some commercials, made some short films, and I just said to my friends, I was like, "Why don't we just make a feature? Why are we gonna make another short film? So what? We made a couple shorts. But we want to make feature films, right? Let's just make it. We don't have any money, but so what?" So we basically had a buddy of mine write a script, and it was a comedy. It was basically this group of people, modern day, who all worked in an office, but acted and dressed like they were still in high school in the 1980s. And so it's just this, kind of crazy comedy, and we just started putting it together. We're doing casting calls, and a neighbor of mine heard that I was making a movie and said, "There's a kid in my church that wants to get into movies. Can you come work on your film?" I was like, "If he wants to work for free, sure." And that guy ends up going on and working at FX years later, and then now works for the Golf Channel and is like a high-up executive, and the first thing I ever did was being a PA standing on my feature film because he was willing to come work for free and do nothing on somebody that didn't know his crappy movie, basically. So we made this terrible movie. The $6,000 that we spent was primarily spent on food for our cast, and I did a lot of stuff wrong that I have on there saying that we should do. We had a cast of 80 people in the film at one point with extras and everything. Some of the actors that I actually met on that film are still friends to this day, almost 20 years later, that I worked on that project with. Somehow I met somebody who knew a bunch of people that did motorcycle stunt driving, so we wrote a motorcycle stunt driving sequence into the film and had that take place in this big parking lot, and did all kinds of crazy stuff for this thing. But I made this film, and then I was done with it, and I was like, well, now what do I do with this thing? I think I sent it to one film festival and got rejected, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Because this thing is not really that good. It's probably not going to get in. We did like a public screening for it so everybody that worked on it could see it, and everybody drank too much and had a good time. But that was about it. But then from there, people started to call me up and be like, "I heard you made a feature film." Like, I did make a feature film. Like, will you help me make mine? I'm like, sure. And it just changed people's mindset because we actually shot it and completed it and finished making a feature film. It wasn't the fact that it was a bad feature film, it was the fact that you actually made the feature film. So we shot over the course of 4 months, basically every weekend for 4 months, just Saturdays and Sundays. So everybody works during the week. So Monday through Friday, we're basically pre-production for those 2 days. So you got 5 days of pre-production, shoot 2 days. 5 days of pre-production, shoot 2 days. And so it worked out really well. Ended up, 15 or 16 shooting days over the course of the whole thing. 4 hurricanes came through Florida at the time. So, there was one scene where it was raining, garbage bag over the camera. Let's get out in the rain. Shot the character, in the rain. A couple of the actors had to crash in my house because they couldn't go home. One was in Jacksonville, one was in Orlando. And so we couldn't shoot that particular day, so we chose a different scene and set up lights with orange gels on my back porch to come in through the window to make it look like sunlight, even though it's like storming outside. And so you just get creative and you just make your dumb little movie. But from that, people wanted to work with me and wanted me to help them on their feature films. And then from that came the idea of, hey, do you want to start a film festival? And so I started the film festival because I made this crappy feature film that nobody wanted to play, and figured, well, if I don't want to move to LA, what can I do to get people to come to me? If I start a film festival, they're all going to come here. And so that's why I say I've literally built my career off of film festivals and making just one crappy movie. So everybody go out and make your crappy movie, basically, is what I'm saying. Because there's no excuse not to, right? You know, if you've got a handful of people that want to work together on a project and everybody's just passionate and you want to make something, just go make it. Just go shoot it on weekends, and then, but just finish it. Just go through the process of finishing it. And even now, when it's done, if no one's going to pick it up for actual distribution, there's so many film festivals out there. Odds are you'll be able to play some film festivals. You can put it up on Vimeo and charge $1 for it if you want, or just put it on some free platforms, but make your feature film. Because when you look at IMDb, everybody goes to IMDb and they consider that as kind of like, that's your resume, right? Even though sometimes it's completely inaccurate. Go to IMDb and you pull somebody up and it says, short film, short film, short film, short film, short film. There's 50 short films there. Pull somebody else up, it says, feature film, short film, short film. 3 things, that's the only thing they have. What's the first thing your eyes go to? They made a feature film. You never heard of the feature film, you don't know who any of the actors are in that feature film, you don't look at it, but you would rather work with a person that made that one feature film than that person who's made 50 short films. I'm guessing, I'm telling you what you're thinking, but does anybody agree with me on that? You know, because somebody's actually been able to complete it. But that's kind of a mindset and something that I've seen before. I've met people who, a kid that I met in Cannes last year was a college student, he was trying to raise $50,000 to shoot his 10-minute short film. I'm like, why? Why are you going to spend $50,000 on a 10-minute short film? You can make a feature film for that. But he couldn't get his mind around, you know, what he wanted it to be. And you know, I'm just saying, go make your stuff. That's the biggest thing, is you got to get out there and make it. My arm's getting tired for this. All right, what do we got? What's next here? Okay, so now I might getting a little bit deep into the distribution weeds to kind of talk about what it means to actually get your film made or to get your film distributed. So, you know, everyone's familiar with studio films, you know, all the big Marvel films and Avatar and anything else that comes out, and they're playing on 4,000 screens and they're making a ton of money. You know, you've got your smaller specialty studios that are making smaller budget films that used to be theatrical. Some will still go theatrical. For the most part, everything is going, you know, some sort of streaming nowadays. But the streaming business is really actually kind of hurt the industry a lot. And I'll go into a little bit some of the conversations I've had with sales agents recently about everything. You know, VOD and digital. You know, there's people still, you know, your movie comes out, Fablemans comes out, and then, you know, a month later you can pay $20 to watch it online or whatever it might be. But with streaming being the primary part of it. Foreign sales, we'll talk some more about foreign sales. You know, DVD sales actually still exist. People still buy DVDs. I know Andrew has a Blu-ray collection. And so DVDs are still a way of actually creating revenue for films. It's not what it used to be. And then super truly independent films, a lot of people call them micro-budget films, that sometimes get that small theatrical release like we did for the Bernie the Dolphin films, or no studio release, and they're just going on to, you know, direct platforms like Shudder, which is the horror platform, or Passionflix, which Passionflix is Tosca Musk, which is Elon Musk's sister, started this. It's just like a romance channel. Kind of strange, but it is what it is. We actually had a Passionflix film shoot in Clearwater. Anyways, or Urban Movie Channel, another one. So you have these niche, you know, sort of outlets for films. So this is DVD sales, top-selling DVD sales in the United States in 2019, pre-COVID, right? And so you've got Avengers Endgame up there with almost 3 million DVDs being sold for $67 million. So you see the box office sales, but then they're still making another $67 million just on selling DVDs, all the way down to, you know, Pet Sematary, you know, still selling 370,000 copies and bringing another almost $7 million in DVDs. Let's go to the next screen, and this is 2022. You went from 3 million and 67 million to, you know, $26 million less. So those numbers have plummeted. Like the rise of streaming in the COVID market has even killed, you know, the DVD sales even more, basically. So how does studio films make money? And I know the whole topic of this is how do you get your screenplay or project made, but I end up getting to that as I kind of explain how these projects make money and why somebody gives you money for projects and how you kind of put them together. And this is like literally just sort of rough estimates from the numbers that you see out there. We won't have to go line by line. But basically, James Cameron said in an interview that the film needed to make $1 billion just to break even, basically, because it was one of the most expensive, you know, projects ever made with like a $460 million budget. And then another at least $200 million for marketing, and you add all that up, And how much does Disney get? How much do the theaters get? What are the costs and the distribution costs? And these are all the things that when somebody's looking at making your movie, not on the studio scale, but even on a smaller scale, they have to calculate, okay, if this is a $500,000 movie, how much are we going to spend on marketing? How much is the sales agent fee? How much is the distribution fee? Because all of that matters. And they got $140 million in tax credits from New Zealand. I wish we had $140 million tax credits to give one film in Texas. And then you've got VOD and merchandising and all this. This is all guesstimates. I didn't call up Disney and Fox and get these numbers from them. This is just from available information that I kind of, reverse engineered a little bit on that. So somebody may say, that is completely wrong, it's completely inaccurate. It's a guesstimate, right? Okay, so again, super in the weeds businessy, how to feature films, make money. You've got, the cost of the film, you've got your print and advertising costs, you've got distribution fees, sales agent fees, original budgets. Like the numbers, you get from $91 million down to the investors only making $1.7 million on a film out of $91 million because it's more than just make a film, sell the film. You have all of these other things that go into it and how they all break down and how they all work and where you're getting the money from theatrical, home entertainment, television, VOD, and everything else. So again, we'll share this with you. I'm not going to bore everybody too much with all this. There are some, what I think are super interesting slides that I'll get into a little bit that really tell you the truth about how the industry works. So here's another little example that I put together on how a non-studio film, let's say a small independent film works. I can't see my own slides because I'm so close to it. On putting together your tax credits and depending on the state and the budget, kind of like an example of what the tax credits are for each of these states and why Texas isn't getting the money that it has been. And putting together foreign sales and licensing the films and getting these minimum guarantees. So I'm going to explain. How many people know what a minimum guarantee is in the film industry? Okay, we've got a couple people. So how many knows when I say foreign sales distribution and working with sales agents, what any of that means? A couple people as well. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, and this is exactly how the industry works and when you're getting your projects made, how it all goes together. So there's a reason that you have 4 major film markets per year. So the markets are European Film Market in Berlin in February, Marché du Film at the Cannes Film Festival in May, Toronto in September, which is TIFF, and then American Film Market in Santa Monica in November every year. And what happens at those are literal trade shows where if you go to Berlin or Cannes Film Festival, there's a convention center set up, and you have all these booths and all these tables with these companies in there, and they have their booths set up, and they have their movie posters and their screens, and they're just sitting there, and they're waiting for buyers from these 50 international territories around the world to come in and take a look. And then I've sat in on my friends' meetings, and this is literally how it works. They'll literally just walk in, and they're looking at the posters and be like, do you have any MMA films? It's like, no, I don't have an MMA film, but I got a boxing film. It's literally a product that is being bought and sold. It's like, oh, well, who's in the boxing film that you got? Oh, here's the boxing film and who's in it. And the buyers will literally go to their phone, and I've seen the Chinese buyers specifically do this because they don't know who any of the actors are. They'll go in and they start looking through the IMDb star meter, and they're like, oh, star meter 1,000. That's pretty good. We'll give you $5,000 for this movie. And when they say $5,000, what they're doing is they're licensing the rights to distribute your film in China for anywhere from, say, 3 to 5 to 7 years for $5,000. And then that same movie, you've got to license the rights to that film in Germany, and in Japan, and in the UK, and in the Middle East, and Latin America. And so you're literally piecemeal putting all of these films together to get your money back, to be able to pay the investors back and pay the film off, basically. And so let's say the budget of your film is $1 million. You use that nice, round, even number that everybody likes. So you have to sell $1 million from all of those individual territories. And so the US, which they call the domestic territory, which is really US and Canada, for domestic sale, that's generally the biggest chunk. You're like 40% of your money you're coming back is going to come from US domestic. And so that's why when I gave that example of Bernie the Dolphin with Lionsgate, they gave us just the domestic. There was a number that they gave us that was the domestic number. That's what they would get for the rights for the film for 5 years just in North America, essentially. And then you got to go out and you have to individually sell all of the individual territories, and you sell airline, and you sell cruise ship, and you sell all these little bits of piecemeal to make the money back for the film. And then when the money comes back, the sales agent takes their 15%, so whatever they sold, they get 15% of that. They have a marketing fee because they have to travel to these different shows. They put the marketing materials and everything together, so they have a marketing fee that they charge that takes that. And then the investor gets their money back first, and then the investor also gets their 15 or 20% or 10%, whatever you've negotiated with them, so that money comes back. So in a lot of cases, if you sold $1 million on $1 million film, you've actually lost money. You need to sell $1.5 million on $1 million film just to break even, and for the producers to get zero, essentially. Am I scaring everybody here with? So here are a couple of different films, and the genre, and what their budget was, what their pre-sales were, their total sales, tax credit. So that's why tax credits are so important to producers, and why they always want to shoot the tax credit state, because it's free money back. So if you look at that model where it's like $1 million and they know they're going to have to sell 1.5, well, if they can get $300,000 back from somewhere, that really helps. Okay, now I only got $700,000 that we've got to get back. And so that pre-sale number, when I was talking about, having to sell to Germany or China or Japan or whatever else, what you can do sometimes, and what is part of the business model, is you actually sell your movie before it's made. So you've got a movie, and you've got Andrew starring in it as the action star in the film. He's going to be, John Wick in it throughout the entire thing. People love Andrew, and so when you're showing the film to the German buyers be like, oh, this is a martial arts action film. It stars Andrew. It's not been made yet, but we like what this is going to be. We'll give you $100,000 when you're done with the movie and you deliver it to us. So you pre-sold the movie in that territory. So you try and pre-sell the movie in a bunch of territories to try and get 40%, 50% of your budget, whatever it might be. And then you actually take those pre-sale contracts and you go to a bank or you go to a financier, and they pay you for the contracts before you've made the movie, because they trust that you're going to make the movie and finish it. And that's where sort of being established in the industry and having those relationships makes a difference. There are companies like 3 Point Capital, independent investors will also, on pre-sale contracts, fund off the pre-sale contracts. So they're going to give you that money in advance so that you can make the movie. So if you got $1 million movie and you get $300,000 in pre-sales, you get $300,000 in a tax credit, well, now an investor only needs to put $400,000 in cash into $1 million movie. So think of it like, buying a house almost. You're basically putting a down payment on the house, and then the film is your collateral, like the house is collateral for the loan. And that's essentially, this is literally how 99% of movies, like independent films, we're talking independent films, not studio films, are actually made, is with that business structure. So this is a spreadsheet that you may not be able to find anywhere online. So there's a website called FilmTake where you can actually buy some of these sales reports. And it doesn't tell you the name of the film or who's in it. All it'll tell you is the year, the genre, and the age of the actors. And so I spent hours online with these reports, reverse engineering, looking up, okay, here's these, and basically just doing all this deep diving into reports on IMDb Pro to reverse engineer and figure out what the name of the film was and who was in it, because you can see the actor, you can see the year that they're done. So you actually won't be able to find this information online because it doesn't exist. This is something that I was able to reverse engineer, even though I had the numbers, but I was able to put everything else together. And so you can see the actual territories and what they paid for these films. So the minimum guarantee is the amount that they say that they're going to give you for the film when we talk about those territories. So, France, $300,000 for the film, 12% of the film's budget. I know I told you this is going to be super businessy and in the weeds kind of thing, but I think it's important for filmmakers to know how the industry actually works, so that even if you're just a creative, you're just a writer, you're just a director, and you just want to create great art, create content, you need to know when you're talking to your producers and they start telling you, this is how we're going to raise money, this is how we're going to put things together, this is why we do this stuff. You need to know how and why it works from, for your own knowledge. Nobody wants to be uninformed when it comes to money and just being able to, get things done, basically. So literally, break down the sales for each of the different territories. And when they say ask and take, ask is the number that they asked for, and take is the number that they're willing to accept when it comes to, the sales portion of it. So, we can look at this and So these are like I said, the minimum guarantee numbers that that were offered for this particular film. And the minimum, you can go to the next slide. The minimum guarantee, basically, you're not going to get anything after that. You know, everything's about residuals and what does it do. So if it does $1 billion in Germany, they work the accounting so that that minimum guarantee number that they gave you in advance, that's really all you're going to get. Same thing from domestic. You're not going to see those overages. I think the producers just got a $2,000 check from one of the Burning the Dolphin films for an overage, you know, for something. Very minimal amount. Those are the numbers you're going to get. So another film here, Dom Hemingway with Jude Law and Emilia Clarke. Just more examples. I mean, we can kind of go through these. I'm not going to break down every single one of these, but just to give you a sense. So Chef, everybody that came out a few years ago, Jon Favreau. Well, Jon Favreau was able to call up all of his friends that were in the Avengers, basically, and have them do a movie about a food truck. And so this movie was super successful because of that. Even though it was a little film with an $8 million budget, it's I can't remember where all the numbers are on the last slide, but it made a lot of money basically, and they did killer on that particular film. Yeah, there's like 10 million. All right, so I talked about the film markets, you know, what all the film markets are, where they take place every year, where these are kind of just some examples of, you know, you can see the trade shows. And so, fun fact, so you have all these pavilions here. We're going to have Dallas at the Cannes Film Festival this year for the first time. Representing Dallas there, because that's where the industry goes and that's where everybody is. And so we're going to see what we can do to bring some business back for Dallas. Another more spreadsheet kind of stuff that you can all look at later, but just kind of giving examples of what the average amounts that these territories will pay. And just like you would think, you know, the bigger countries with more money, they're going to pay more money for films. Your small countries aren't going to pay a lot. Turkey loves to offer like $1,500. I've seen Turkey, you know, sit in meetings like that's the number, $1,500. Someone's like, come on, Turkey, you can do better than this. Asia, Middle East, so on and so forth. So I kind of already went through this, kind of giving you an example of on that $1 million film. But this is sort of it, you know, written down for you to take a look at, and why it's important to get, you know, the tax incentives and the investors getting their percentages back. So on this example, you know, the sales agent sells $2 million. You know, they get their marketing fee, they get a $400,000 sales fee, you're down to $1.5 million, you still gotta pay the investors $300,000, you got your incentive and everything, and the film basically breaks even at that point. So whatever you got paid as your fee for writing it or directing it or producing it or whatever you did, that's kind of all you're gonna get. But the important thing to think of, and that you wanna make sure happens every time you make a movie and you have somebody invest in your movie, is you want the investors to make their money back more than anything else. Because if they don't make their money back, not only will they never invest in your film again, they're never going to invest in anybody else's film again. Because there's so many investors that are, you know, put money into a film, and you come around and you ask them to put money into another film, they're like, well, I did that once, it was fun, but I didn't make any money, so, you know, I'm just going to buy real estate or NFTs or crypto or whatever, to get their project made. So and what you've done, if you don't make the investors their money back, you've not only hurt yourself, you've actually hurt the entire film industry as a whole. No pressure. Because you've pulled that person who would invest in independent film out of the marketplace. So you've actually damaged the film industry by pulling that person out of the marketplace by not following through and properly making a film that will get your investor their money back. So, not trying to shame anybody or anything, but it can be hard to do, and so that's why you just really need to be so conscious from the beginning about being realistic about getting your project made. Oh, we got here more spreadsheets, charts. So, average revenue for projects. StephenFollows.com. This dude is awesome. He does amazing research where he will like deep dive on research stuff. Highly recommend going to his website and checking things out. There's a link. You can actually type that link in since it doesn't click. That won't open up right there for some reason. So more spreadsheets. Financing deals, I kind of have gone through all this and given you sort of the samples. I'll get out of the way so you can take some pictures, but we'll send this and just, you know, examples of as you're financing a project, how you're putting the pieces together and you're getting the bank financing. and you're getting foreign pre-sales and all that kind of stuff. It's, you know, more charts. We'll jump forward over these charts. You know, breaking down the genres. Stephen Follows really does a great job of breaking down genres and who pays for it, and domestic box office, foreign box office. There's a reason horror and action films like always get made, because those are always profitable. And those are films that you can make at a small budget and still get distributed. You know, obviously the two examples we gave, Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch Project, were horror films, but there are numerous other small horror films that can be made. I know these guys in Florida that made a $15,000 horror film called Followers. It was like a social media kind of thing, and they ended up selling, you know, well more than their budget of the film. And because they did that and they got their money back for the investors wanted to invest in another movie, and they were able to make a little bit of bigger budget film. And I'm not sure if that film's out yet, but it's basically, there's a Florida urban legend called the Skunk Ape. Anybody familiar with Skunk Ape? It's basically smelly Bigfoot. Florida has smelly Bigfoot. It's called Skunk Ape. So they made a Skunk Ape movie, but they had to change the name to Wild Man because nobody wanted to buy a movie called Skunk Ape. All right, so we talked about networking. You know, film festivals. There's like 9,000 film festivals out there. Different conferences, like produced by the film markets that I mentioned. Austin Film Festival, you guys have it right down the road in Austin, one of the best, you know, writing festivals in the world. Everybody, you know, knows the Austin Film Festival is really known for writers and being a great writers festival. Keep writing. What else do I have? Oh, is that it? I'm done. All right. So there are a lot of questions, so let me get some water and then we can talk a little more. So that was a lot, I know, to kind of run through and just kind of throw at you, especially the business side of stuff, because it really does take sometimes years to learn, you know, that aspect of it. But I think one of the points that I wanted to get across, you know, I was talking earlier about the whole thing, is really just to get out there and make stuff, make whatever you're making. Don't be afraid to make, you know, a feature film, even if you don't really have any money. Just get out there and make something to have that, you know, to be able to take that next step, that crappy $6,000 comedy that I made that turned into the next film, to the next film, to the next film kind of thing. I think my next feature film after that comedy that I made, I did a feature-length documentary that played a bunch of film festivals and won awards and is now on, you know, Amazon Prime and everything like that. And that's, you know, it's the second feature that I made, basically after the terrible one. Questions? Yeah, hands going up.
Yeah, so I represent the film festival, but there's been a lot of discussions that we've had with filmmakers, and some of them, they see film festivals as potential plus, some of them see them as a negative, and they're seeking, as you say, distribution. And so, what would you say, you know, we've seen your slides about where you kind of position film festivals, but, you know, what would you tell filmmakers about, you know, film festivals?
What would I tell filmmakers about film festivals? Because some people see them as a negative, some people see them as a positive, and people are trying to get distribution from going to film festivals. Well, I think my feelings on film festivals are very well known. I think they're one of the most valuable tools that anyone has, and everyone should support their local film festivals as much as possible. And it really does make a difference because you never know who you're going to meet at that festival. So even if you're playing a festival that you don't think you're going to meet somebody at, Denton Black Film Festival in Denton, Harry here. I haven't been yet, but I guarantee that there are amazing people that you can meet at that festival if you have a film there that will turn into something next. Whether it's just meeting somebody that you want to collaborate with, that you didn't know that you had the same outlook on something, or somebody owns a great camera and you have the audio gear and you've written a great script, or whatever it might be. So even if it's not you're getting distribution for your project, you know, you're meeting people that you're going to end up, you know, working with down the road. So I don't know why anyone would think anything negative, detrimental about film festivals. I know they can be expensive to submit to, but they really are so valuable for, you know, especially, you know, like I used the example of the dolphin film that we shot. The guy that distributed those films and that got the sales deals and set it up, he first came to Sunscreen Film Festival maybe 2007 or 2008. And he just liked it, and so he just kept coming back, and we'd have him come back every year, and he would speak on panels and workshops. And for 10 years, he would always say, all the time, he'd be like, we really need to work on something together. Really need to work on something. We should find something to work on. But just nothing ever came of it. But we became friends. I'd go out to LA and see him. He'd be in Florida and everything else. And you're just friends and you're hanging out. And then, boom, all of a sudden, hey, you got a marine mammal family-friendly movie? He's like, I know who to call talking about this thing. So, part of it is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know who you don't know. You don't have to think, I only need to be friends with the billionaires. Where are the billionaires in the room that I can just be friends with these people and not anybody else? All of us should try not to be so selfish sometimes and think, what can we do to help other people? Because in helping other people, I sound like everybody's parents right now, you actually end up helping yourself at some point in time. There was something I'll go here.
So is a no-budget film the only way to kind of avoid those sales agent fees and other fees? And if so, or even if not, will you still need to account for marketing costs? I'm thinking that you could crowdfund, you can self-fund, but going back to the distribution, how would you go about getting your film seen if you get it for nothing?
Yeah, so I obviously was going over a lot of traditional distribution. There are a lot of other ways that you can do distribution. If you have a sales agent selling your film, there's no way to avoid sales fees because they're not going to work for free. Because that's how they make a living as well, is off of those fees. So if you're selling a film, you have to, via that traditional route, which is why if you're doing a small film, in a lot of cases, you are better off doing self-distribution, figuring out what that self-distribution model is. If you can get good at, and it sounds great to say, just get good at social media. If you can be good at promoting your film because you've built an audience, that's one of the great things about crowdfunding. It's not just because you're raising money for your project, you're building your audience for your project. And so building your audience for your project is going to help you then when that releases. Everybody that contributed, they want to watch the project, and then they want to share the project with their friends. Hey, this is something that I contributed to. Here's this feature film. Look, I'm listed in the credits. Build an audience. Whether you put a film on Vimeo or YouTube, or a lot of times you can actually get it onto Amazon and Google Play without using a sales agent. There are companies called aggregators where you have to pay them, something like $5,000, $7,000. And then they get your film up on that platform, so you're not paying any sales agent fees at that point. You're just getting whatever the revenue split is on, let's say you're on, iTunes or whatever, and I don't know what percentage iTunes take, but they're taking 50%, and so, you're losing 50% because iTunes is keeping 50%, but it's up to you to push and market and sell the film yourself. So you can do a total self-distribution route, and in a lot of cases, it is the best way to go if you've made a really low budget film. But at the same time, the thing about going that traditional distribution route, even if the sales agents are taking that money, you're not making any money, what you're doing is you're kind of getting your foot into the real industry from that perspective, where you have that sales agent and they sell the film, and then if they like it and it does well enough, let's say you don't even make any money, you have your foot in the door for your next film and a way to scale and step up. It's very, very rare that somebody just says, oh, you made this really cool short film, I'm going to give you $1 million or more to make your feature. You've got to do those baby steps to kind of build yourself up, basically. Does that answer the question?
It does.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I want to say how much I appreciate your high energy overview. So comprehensive.
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
really, it's like, wow. But I just wonder, as someone who's writing something with a Sasquatch character,
Is it a smelly Sasquatch?
yeah, a smelly. So I was thinking, you have the smelly Sasquatch. Have you thought of maybe just calling it the reeking? Because then you have it has almost a biblical sense to it, and you haven't given up skunk at all. But reeking it's anyway. Just
I would have to I'll let them know.
please share the reeking, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
The reeking. I'll text them later and say, guys, you can rename your film.
Hi, thank you, Tony, so much. This has been really insightful and mind-boggling. If you were to use the short film, you mentioned proof of concept.
Yeah.
Using the short film as a proof of concept. If it was, do you decide if it's for a feature or a series, and does that change the way that you go about producing a short film at all?
Sure. So if you're making a short film for a proof of concept, for a feature or series, is there a particular way that you need to make it for? I think really it can be either or. Just make it as good as you can for whatever you're doing, whatever your budget is, whatever you're trying to do, however you can illustrate what you think the bigger project is going to be in the best way possible within the confines of whatever you're making as far as a short goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you could make a short that somebody could see it and be like, this would be a great series, and other people would see it and be like, this would be a great feature.
So it's also information gathering. at that
Yeah,
point.
exactly. But if you've already written the feature script and you're just going to do a proof of concept for that feature, you're making it specifically for that feature because you have the script already. Because people will see it and be like, oh, this is great. Do you have something more? But like, actually, this is a feature. This is just the proof of concept for it, essentially.
Right. And if you're not sure, do you want to plan out, for example, do you want to make that decision, or do you just say like, oh, I want to test it out, I want to see if
Yeah,
people.
I think know what the end goal is.
Yeah.
Don't just make something and say, it could be anything. I'm not sure what this is.
Right.
Be a little more focused on what it is. So if you have the feature idea, maybe you haven't written the feature script yet, but you've got it laid out, as far as treatment or just a really detailed outline, and you're working on the feature, but you want to do that short first, at least you know where you want to get to.
Right. Very cool. Thank you.
I appreciate the honesty, the perspective of short versus feature. I feel the same way. I'm in a unique situation. In Dallas, we right before COVID, we created an independent series. We did 2 seasons, 18 episodes. It was very traumatic because we bootstrapped it.
Yeah.
But it was nominated for a daytime Emmy, so
Awesome.
we had success on a very low budget series. Now I'm in a position.
Yeah, that's great. And 18 episodes, how long is each episode?
Half hour.
30 minutes, 18 episodes. Wow, that's impressive.
Thank you. It traumatic.
Yeah.
and just like your story resonated with us because we shot every weekend for 5 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually had a 25-hour day. So the question I have is, now I'm writing a feature. It's in a good spot. Is it worth bootstrapping it again to get that feature under my belt? Because I haven't done a feature. I've done
Right.
a short and I've done 18 episodes, but I haven't done a feature. So I'm kind of struggling.
I mean, I guess that's up to you to decide if it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
I guess, the first approach would be see if you could, raise enough money to make the feature. And here's a point that I wanted to make. I didn't mention it while I was going through this, but I think it's super important and will inform your question a little bit. So a lot of times you ask somebody, they have a feature film they want to make, they go, oh, what's the budget of your feature? It's $4 million. Well, why is the budget $4 million? Well, it's $4 million because that's what it'll take to make it. Well, why is it for? Why do you say that's what it'll take to make it? Have you had a line producer break the script down and break down the budget, like to note every single prop and every single thing, like you're ready to shoot that this is what it's going to cost? Most cases that answer is no. It's like, no, they have this $4 million number in their head. But what is super important is the budget of your film is what people are willing to pay for your film. So, using all those examples with the, what you're making and what you're selling for and everything else, if you're only going to sell $2 million and your pre-sales would only be $2 million and everything is only going to be $2 million, you're not going to make a $4 million film. One, no one's going to give you the money, but your budget has to be whatever it's actually worth in the marketplace. And so you can do that by, so you write your feature, you've got your feature, you have 18 episodes, 30 minutes that you've done, and you can, IMDb Pro is a great tool to just start reaching out to sales companies. Or for AFM on their website, you can actually sign up for emails that they'll send from they call it the film catalog, where it shows like all the new films that are coming out, all these different sales companies are selling, and you can see, okay, what are these companies selling, what genres kind of match what I'm doing, and sort of pick maybe a sales company and call and say, hey, I've got this film that I'm doing, I'm looking for a sales agent, would you want to come on board? And a lot of them are going to say no, but you probably find somebody. And then the goal is to find out what your movie is worth before you make it, so you know what the budget would be. So I'll give an example. If it's tired to hear me talk, can I give another example? Or okay. All right, so the script that I had mentioned earlier that I wrote that was a finalist for Screencraft, right before 2020, we were getting ready to put it together, and I had Christina Ricci attached to star in it. I had Tom Hopper from Umbrella Academy, who was also going to star in it, David Dasmalchian, who's in all the Ant-Man films, and Dune. They were all going to be in this film. And then 2020 happens, and everything basically falls apart, and the movie doesn't get made. And all those actors go on to other projects, and I lose them, and so I'm trying to recast the film. And in the process of recasting the film, go to my sales agent and put a list of actors together and literally send them this spreadsheet. And they go through the spreadsheet and they go, nope, 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 yes, no, no, yes, yes, no. And so they're telling me who it's even worth talking to for the film, because we were trying to shoot around a $4 million budget, and they know, like, okay, $4 million budget, we need to get about 5.5 million in for this, just for break even. And so and they would literally be calling up, Bayer in Germany and say, hey, if we got this film, that's this action film, and it has this person in it, how much you pay us for it? Okay, $100,000. So, okay, we know this is $100,000. So you start reverse engineering it and figuring out how much is my movie worth before I actually make it, so that you can actually come up with the right budget. Now, in some scenarios, if you're shooting an action film or some big, sci-fi film or historical epic or whatever it might be, you get to a number, you're like, we can't make the movie for this because we can't afford to actually do the film. So, at that point, maybe I make something smaller instead to try and build back up to this, because the hardest part is getting the cast, getting that talent on board. That is always the hardest thing to do, because they want to be secure in knowing that whoever they're working with is going to, be able to make something good, so they don't, ruin their career or look bad. Or do you have the money? Because in so many scenarios, it's like, we will make this film, but we're using your name to be able to get these pre-sale numbers, and they know that in advance, and so a lot of times they don't even sign on to a project. So it's just difficult to do. So that was a sort of answer to your question. Does that give you more information?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's, if I think it's worth it, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, if it's only worth it if you're able to just put it together and make it for, whatever, shooting on weekends again. It's hard. It is torturous to do that, but once you do it and get it done, you've done a feature.
Yeah.
And then that really does help.
You mentioned the letter, the pre-sale letter that you take to the bank.
Yes.
Does that work the same way for streamers, for like Netflix or Lifetime, Hulu?
Yeah, so if you had like a streamer that gave you a pre-sale as opposed to...
You go to them and they would say, we're going to distribute, and then you have the letter that you can take to the bank.
Yes. But the letter is not just a letter, it's a contract.
A contract.
A full contract saying this is what we will pay you when it is complete. So, yes, just depends on
And
how
also, if you're able to raise money, but you don't have a track record, how do you find a producer that you can partner with?
If you can raise money, it's not hard to find a producer. How many producers in this room would like to help her make her movie?
But I couldn't go out and raise money.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Hey, I'd like to raise money, and they go, well, who are you? You don't have the producing track record.
Yeah, no,
That's why I'm
get.
saying you need to partner with them.
Yeah, you need to partner with someone who maybe has the relationships with the sales agents who,
Right.
And so I think, one thing is, again, networking in groups like this, see who in the room, because there were some hands that went up earlier, people who have made feature films and distributed them, right? And so those people are good ones to talk to because they've actually been there and done that. And then the same route of just doing research. It's like, okay, you've got, let's call it a Lifetime channel film because you use that as an example. You have, a Lifetime channel-esque film that you want to do. You can raise. The budgets of those films are generally small, $500,000, something like that. Start looking at, what are all the Lifetime channel films that were produced, where were they produced, who produced these. Reach out to a lot of those producers, especially because those are in that budget range. They're really willing to hop on board. If you have something in that Lifetime range and you're doing that, let me know, because there's a producer, excuse me, my voice from Talking to Watch, that I worked with in Florida that he shot 11 Lifetime channel films in St. Pete Clearwater area last year. It was one of the big things I did because I had 18 films there last year, and so he did 11 of these, and so he's always looking for...
One of them takes place there, so that's why I was asking.
Oh, in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can
Not here.
talk or email later, and I'll give you his information to talk to, because if you're able to raise the money, he's already producing for Lifetime, and so that's an easy connection to make. I'll put you guys together and see if you get married or, ends up in divorce at some point in time. You never know.
I have a two-part question.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit more about Ink Tip
Okay.
and how you can figure out which producers are the best ones to pitch your script to? And then also, do you have an opinion about Virtual Pitch Fest?
Inktip and Virtual Pitch Fest are the questions. So, so it's 8 o'clock. I won't be offended if anybody's hungry and has to get up and leave or anything, because I know we've been going on for almost an hour and a half. So, but I'll answer questions as long as almost as long as anybody wants until my water's gone and I collapse. So Inktip, for those who are familiar with Inktip, Inktip is a resource where you can actually post your screenplay online and producers can look and read and try and find screenplays that they want to produce. And I've had a relationship with Inktip for years where at one point when we were producing Hallmark Channel films, they reached out and I said, yeah, send me a list of producers with Christmas films. And we looked through and tried to find some different Christmas films. It wasn't anything that at the time that we made, but I was able to put somebody together with another person who ended up getting her film made down the road. So it can be useful, but it's also, you're throwing your one piece of popcorn into an entire bucket. And, it can be hard to find, depending on, what it is. What's hot in the marketplace, what are people looking for? Lifetime Channel films, Hallmark Channel films, I don't know, whatever it might be. Horror is always hot, action is always hot. Those are the genres that really go. So Inktip can be useful for that. And then virtual pitch fest. I think pitch fest can be great from a perspective, a lot of times from a learning perspective. I don't know how practical they are as far as actually getting stuff made. And pitch fest can be fun. We always do one at Sunscreen Film Festival every year, and we have a great panel of people who will listen to the pitches and then give great feedback on them. So I think they can be good for feedback, but I don't know how many times people actually are like, I love it, we're gonna make that film. Except for, we did have one project that got made via Sunscreen. I could give another small example if anybody cares to hear that one. All right, so it'll be fast. So it was, we do the little pitch fest thing. People are getting up and pitching their ideas. They're pitching, big feature films or TV series, and they're telling, all these great stories, and they're getting their feedback. And then one woman stands up to give her pitch, and maybe I'll get emotional because I've been mentoring her for a couple of years now. So she's a African American autistic filmmaker, and she had a documentary in the festival, and she got up and she gave this great pitch, like an amazing pitch. It was so good. And I was like, that was great. And everybody on the panel loved it. And was, well, how long's your pitch? Or how long's your script? She said 5 pages. I was like, 5 pages? I was like, I can help you get that made. And so I called up a couple friends and said, you're giving me $1,000, you're giving me $1,000. And she'd never made a film with a crew before, with a film crew before. She'd only made movies by herself. And she'd had this, crazy, difficult life. And if Jennifer ever sees this video, I'll just wave to her now. And, she had this crazy, difficult life, and she just wanted to make this basically short documentary. It was like a spoken word thing where she tells her story, and it's called Like the Girls Who Wear Pink. And you can actually find it online on YouTube, I think now. And we made this short film, and it went on and won all these awards at all these film festivals everywhere. And it was because she stood up and gave this pitch at the Pitch Fest for this project she wanted to make, but it was achievable. It wasn't a giant sci-fi epic. It was a short personal film about her story. And it was achievable to actually be able to make that, so we were able to help her make that film. And I'm helping her produce another film at the end of this month for the Easter Seals Disability Challenge, and she's putting that film together now, and we put a little film crew together. And so now she's going to be making another film because we'd worked with her to make that film. She had great experience, everybody loved working with her and really wants to support her. And so because of that, because she stood up and gave her little achievable pitch, now she's been able to make 2, 3, films with proper film crews because of doing that. So the pitch fests can be valuable, but it depends who you're pitching to, what you're pitching, and what your expectation is from that. Make sense? Okay, good.
Hi, I have a question about something you said at the very beginning, which was like we all thank Taylor Sheridan for shooting out.
Yes, thank you, Taylor.
Yes. So, like, I love Yellowstone just as much as the next person does, but my question goes off the fact that he tapped into something that people in Hollywood or that circumstance didn't even know that they wanted to watch. So therefore, can you talk about that risk of giving an audience what they don't even know they want versus the stuff like IPs that they know we're going to make bank off this and so on?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for coming, I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. Talking about giving audiences what they don't know that they want. And I think that...
And how that, like...
Yeah, and how that... And I think Taylor Sheridan maybe is a little different because he was very established, in the industry. Obviously shot Hell or High Water and Sicario, just not Sicario, but he wrote Sicario actually, I think. Yeah, he wrote Sicario.
Wind River.
And Wind River, so great film. So he's pretty established in the industry, and when they, started doing Yellowstone, I think the problem with New York, I don't know where New York, LA is in which one's left? LA, New York. With LA and New York is they almost live in their own little bubbles and don't see what maybe the rest of the country wants. And then when Yellowstone came out and it just became this massive success because the rest of the country wanted to see this, then it grew and grew from there. So, in creating your own stuff, tell the stories that you want to tell. Whatever your story is you want to tell, whether it's a personal story, whether it's a, crazy family in Montana that, owns a ranch or whatever it might be, whatever your personal story is up to you to tell. And, how do you get that made is kind of why we do this whole thing, so hopefully that helps. But yeah, tell whatever story you want to tell, even if you don't think people want to hear it, because probably somebody does.
Because I wouldn't even pitch that as a Western. I would pitch it as like The Godfather on a ranch.
Right.
Like I hate when people say Yellowstone's a Western, like it's only for people down south. I go, but it's not really, because like it ties into other things or whatnot. So I was just curious, like, yeah, how risky that is in a mainstream world like Hollywood is.
Well, it wasn't too risky for him. It worked out pretty well, I guess. So.
I'm curious for recommendations around film festivals and
Yeah.
the Dallas International.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. It was nice meeting you.
We have the Dallas International Film Festival coming up as well.
He's asking about recommendations for film festivals.
Do you find a correlation between film festivals and certain genres? Are there certain ways, if you're looking at a certain project and you want to go into a more personal story?
How do you maximize your film festivals,
Audience,
getting into film festivals, choosing film festivals that match what your story is and what you want to do basically? A lot of that's just research. Film Freeway. Is everybody familiar with Film Freeway? If you've made any short film and sent it to festivals, Film Freeway is the #1 way that film festivals basically get their movies. So Film Freeway, you create a free profile, put your movie up there, put all your information about your movie, trailer, the movie itself, and then you can literally search 9,000 film festivals around the world. I'm going to search Dallas International Film Festival. You submit right through that. You click on it, you pay whatever the fee is to submit your film, send it off to Dallas. They watch it, decide whether they want to. Same thing with Oak Cliff, same thing with Sunset, same thing with all these festivals. And so a lot of it is just really research. Looking at the festival, what kind of films did they program last year? What does it seem like they like? There are genre-specific film festivals. There are LGBT film festivals. There are horror film festivals. There are sci-fi film, a little bit of everything. So, if there's a specific genre, documentary film festivals. So, submit to just the documentary festivals, or, it really just is digging in Film Freeway and doing the research. You can find festivals that are less than 5 years or more than 5 years. It's crazy, like how much you can dig into it. It's a lot of work, and you can spend a fortune submitting to film festivals as well, because you want to submit to 20 different film festivals as well. And they charge $50 a piece. That adds up really fast. So just kind of do your research, dig in, and see what makes the most sense for you. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah.
First, I want to welcome you to Dallas.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So say that we have finished our screenplay. We've gotten really great feedback from the Blacklist. We're very satisfied, ready to move forward. As the Dallas Film Commissioner, my question is about that line producer, finding the right line producer, because I want to make my film here in Dallas.
Sure.
So I need the budget.
We want you to make your film in Dallas.
Right. So can you speak a little bit on that? Of are we to come to you and ask your help on getting the right line producer to break the script down and tell us exactly what it's going to cost to make it here?
Yeah. So you're looking for a line producer to help you break your script down to make it in Dallas.
Yeah,
So.
get the budget, so
Yep.
then I know.
So on the Dallas Film Commission website, we do have a production guide where you can look up anything from PAs to scripts to line producers to everything.
Yes.
Now, we can't specifically recommend one person off of there because, it wouldn't be right for us to just pick one person and say, you should only talk to this person or something like that. But you can see the list down there, you can call them up, you can interview them, you can, see who's the best fit for you. And again, the Dallas Producers Association, I'm sure in the Producers Association, there are probably line producers in your grouping, yes? And they will be willing to talk to you about breaking down a script and then, finding the best person that makes the most sense for your project.
Okay, great.
So I want to ask, at what point do you have to protect your material? You have a screenplay and all of that. So at what point do you need to get legal counsel?
Yeah, at what point do you protect your material? So I think copyright.gov is like $65, something like that. You literally copyright the project yourself. You don't need an attorney to copyright your film. You literally go to copyright.gov and you can upload your screenplay and get it copywritten. The idea of sticking an envelope, mailing it to yourself, that is not a valid copyright, no matter if anybody tells you that. There's only one way to copyright it, and that is through the government copyright office, which is copyright.gov. So just pay for it to have it copyrighted, then you have that copyright number that you can literally put right on your screenplay that will let people know that this is copyright material.
So does that mean that there's no need for you to have like an entertainment lawyer down the pipeline?
You will definitely need an entertainment attorney. Everybody is going to need an entertainment attorney if you're making something at some point.
Do we have some in the Dallas area?
I'm sure there are. I'm new to Dallas, so are there any entertainment attorneys in the room? No. Okay. But she knows one. Talk to her. So yeah, you can, and you know, Google. I almost said the phone book. Showing my age. Phone book. Just look in the phone book. Does this exist anymore? But you know, you can Google entertainment attorneys, I'm sure, and in some marketplaces. So obviously, you can have more entertainment attorneys in New York and LA than probably in Dallas, and a lot of times entertainment attorneys in markets like in Florida specifically, and I imagine Dallas too, they do other things because there's not enough business just to be entertainment. It's contract law. So it's somebody who does contract law, if they're familiar with entertainment, at the same time, we usually do both entertainment law and contract law, but I would guarantee there's at least one entertainment attorney in the DFW area, probably. Oh, in the back there. Yes, here.
Hi. Weirdly enough, I just moved here from Tampa. Weirdly enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like 2 months ago. So, what's up?
Are you following me?
So I want to ask, so you've been both a writer and producer. When you are working on newer projects, how much of it are you thinking, if you're just in the writing process, how much of it are you thinking about it as a producer in the sense of how easy it is to get made, or should I add this? This might be a difficult step to get around as a producer.
Yeah, definitely. No, in the writing process for myself, if I am working on something and it's something that I know I want to make, as opposed to, like, I have one script that I've written that it's like, it would be a ridiculous budget film. It's just, I wrote it because it was a story that I wanted to tell and just sitting in a metaphorical drawer somewhere, you know, but it's not something I'm actively taking out to try and get made. So yeah, I definitely am thinking while writing, like, how much will this cost? So if, you know, it's a scene with 80 people in it and it's an action scene, you know, and a giant gunfight, I know that's going to cost a lot of money. So how can I tell what's the point of that scene? What point am I trying to get across in that scene? How can I do it in the most efficient way possible and still get the emotional impact that I want out of that? So, you know, is that reducing the amount of characters? Is that changing the location? Is it, you know, only 2 cars in the car chase instead of 6 cars in the car chase? Whatever, you know, whatever it might be. So yeah, definitely, if it's something that you actively think you want to, you know, anybody can write a screenplay, whatever you want. Write the next Lord of the Rings, or, you know, next huge superhero movie. Write whatever you want to, you know, work on your craft. But just know that writing something like that is going to be a lot more difficult to get made than a small personal film that, you know, you're actively going to try and then make, as opposed to just writing the story you want to tell. And then definitely think about how it'll be shot and made as well.
Can you tell us a bit more about Sunscreen West?
Oh, sure. Rebecca's asking about Sunscreen West. So we had Sunscreen Film Festival in Florida, and then Sunscreen West is a version that we do in Hermosa Beach, California every year. And so I have a separate festival director that runs that one, and that's a great festival as well. And something that was really cool about Sunscreen West this past year, so because it takes place in LA, the festival director out there, who's a talent manager, just calls up his friends to come out and speak on the panels. And so we had a panelist there this past year named Mitch Bell. Mitch Bell just happens to be vice president, head of production for Marvel Studios. And he came and he sat in a room with 15 or 20 people and talked for an hour and answered all their questions and talked about Marvel and talked about everything. And it was great because it was a small, intimate setting that people around the world would have literally paid to sit in a 1,000, you know, seat theater and listen to this guy talk about Marvel films, and he did it for free in this small little setting that there were 20 people. And so that's another reason why I think film festivals are so valuable, because you just never know who's going to be there. Who would think that guy that, you know, big wig at Marvel Studios just going to be sitting there talking to 20 people in a room, just super casual.
Okay, I have a question. If you want to do a feature film for like a
a cartoon character from the book,
Yeah.
would it still be like the minimum of $1 million, you know, for just a feature film? I was just wondering, or should I pitch my film, my script to like Disney or?
So she wants to tell an animated story.
Animated,
The whole thing is animated.
It's animated,
Yeah.
it's everything.
Animation depends on where the animation is coming from and who is doing it, but you know,
If
there's
it's from a book, like.
well, based on a book, but I'm saying like who is actually like how much it's going to cost, how much it's going to cost you to get made. It really depends on who the animators are. So yeah, the animation itself, you know, can a lot of times be outsourced to different countries where it's done cheaper. I know there are great animators in Dallas, or great animation studios in Dallas as well. Sometimes people work with students on it. Not the problem with animation. The thing about animation, it takes a long time to animate a film. You know, it can take years to do a film. And then as far as like hiring the actors to do the voiceovers, I mean, you can do the animated film first, and then you know, kind of pitch it later and see if you can, you know, what if you need a big name actor, if you get no name actors for the voiceover, which I'm still not sure why everybody pays huge dollars to have big name actors for an animated film when the kids don't care who they are and you can't see their face anyways, and I'm not sure how much of a difference it actually makes for distribution. I'm afraid to answering your question real quick. Animated films are hard because they are really expensive for the animation aspect of it. So something like that, pitching it to try and get it told as an animated story, if you can get the right people to hear it, or if there's investors that just really would love to, you know, tell whatever story. It's based on existing book, that simplifies it as well to a certain extent. So I don't know how much that answers your question helps, but okay, great. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.